required to begin with understanding what the participants think is their role, their current role in the context of sustainability. So can we have a quick poll? Ms. Bhavana?
Yes. This is the right poll, right?
Let me just see. I'm unable to see the poll on my.
It is the
just a minute.
Based on your experience, which of the following roles?
That's right. So there are two options, and I need participants to decide which of the options they prefer. Option A is that we all implement energy conservation projects very successfully in order to reduce energy costs and also reduce carbon footprints. That is option A. Option B says that our roles are essentially to manage the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in the energy supply side as well as the energy demand side, so that when we process a lot of resources, the resource conversion efficiencies will continue to be high. So these are the two options. If you may just let us know which is the option that you feel is very relevant in your case.
There's some issue. I'm re-adding the options.
Okay. Yeah. So can we have the results?
Yeah, just one second. Let's start the poll again because the options were wrong at that particular thing. So I request everyone, please vote again. And Mr. Girdhar, can you please read the options again?
Yeah, there are two options for this poll. The option A says that the role is essentially that we run a lot of energy conservation projects successfully so that energy costs reduce and carbon footprints reduce. That is option A. Option B is that we manage the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in energy supply and energy demand sides so that our resource conversion efficiencies continue to remain high. So we have two options, option A, option B. I think do we still wait? Or shall we can come back to this later. We can look at the poll results a little later. So let me continue. So, you know, it's a very interesting thing that
we have results also.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Excellent.
So 88% says A and
the remaining
7% says B.
Okay, that's very interesting because that clearly sets the context for the webinar. Let me then proceed with, you know, the webinar itself. The role that energy management professionals play in sustainability, right, is multiple. It's varied, but we need to understand how and when we can play these multiple roles. The fact that we all still think that, implementing successful energy conservation projects is not a very simple thing. Even to do that, we play a number of roles. So let us see what these roles are. Let us also try to provoke ourselves during this webinar and get some fresh perspectives. As I see it, today, the role of energy management professionals hinges on procuring and using data and information for the job of managing energy supplies and energy demands. It also means that we have to implement a number of projects that can end up reducing these costs or the carbon footprints from the use of energy, which is what was there in that poll. But mind you, even as we do these two things, we also at times come up with new ideas, new approaches to solving problems. That's the ideation role that we need to play, or we play sometimes. And occasionally, we also end up trying to influence top managements to say what needs to be done in order for resource efficiencies to be better, or sustainability in its very general term to be better. So here are these perspectives. So on the one hand, a conventional role of intelligence and implementation, and then over and above that, we also have roles of ideation and influence. We will look at these things in a little more detail during this webinar. But for us to get a clear understanding, we also need to set a context. I'm going to start with a macro context. We all now know that India is aspiring to be a 10 trillion economy by around 2035 or 36. In fact, every 2 years, the momentum has picked up so much that we are adding $1 trillion to the economy, and this is bound to continue for the next 14 to 15 years. So you see, the economic growth is humongous. Parallel to this economic growth is an energy implication. There are estimates that India's energy demand will grow by 3% annually. In fact, the International Energy Agency has even, opined that, India needs to set up power plant sizes of the size of one EU, which will cater to one EU, in order for it to grow the way it is aspiring to grow. Whatever be the case, there are a number of initiatives that government and other agencies have already started, whether it's quadrupling of renewable electricity, whether it's doubling the share of natural gas in the economy, whether it's the green transition using biofuels, green hydrogen, gas-based economies, and there are many more. So there is already, things that are happening on the energy side, but the energy part of supporting an economic growth is a macro context that we need to be aware of. And then into the picture comes another big constraint. India is going to have a critical pain point as far as its quality water resources go, whether it's for industrial applications, whether it is for residential applications, whether it is for agriculture. We are going to face this pinprick. How are we going to manage this? So we need to understand these macro contexts. And then there is one last macro context, which is the criticality of the performance of the micro, small, and medium enterprises, the MSMEs. They are, contributing very much into India's economy even today, and they are bound to contribute even more for the aspired growth. But the criticality is that they will continue to remain as a weak link because of their capacity or the lack of capacity to address sustainability issues and challenges. So this is a macro context that we need to understand. I'm just going to talk of one more context, which is more on the ground, which is like a business context. Let us look at it from a simple business, angle. So there you have a wonderful manufacturing unit manufacturing salted peanuts, whether it's fried or roasted, supplying to a 5-star hotel group. Where are these used? These are used in, international conferences. They are used for cocktail networking parties, so on and so forth. Now, what has happened is this 5-star hotel now has a great opportunity to be an in-flight food and beverages supplier to a big international airlines. That's a context. The manufacturing unit uses a number of young women employees. It uses plastic containers for, storage, handling of raw materials, finished products, work in progress materials, so on and so forth. It uses conventional fuel sources for its operations, and its staff from time to time, flout the law so that they are able to fast track whatever they want to achieve. Now, the 5-star hotel wants this manufacturer who is supplying high quality peanuts to actually supply to the airline industry also. The only catch is that the airlines is owned by a group of private equity investors who are seriously looking at getting more funds based on their ESG or environmental social governance performances. So what they want to do is the airlines wants to ensure that the 5-star hotel is also equally up to the mark. And this is where sustainability imperatives start for everyone in this value chain, whether it is the manufacturing unit, whether it is the hotel, whether it is the airlines, whether it is the employees. Now they need to start seriously thinking about, how they can improve their recycling, performances, how they can improve their women's welfare performances, how they can be better at, the use and disposal of their resources, how they can actually comply with a lot of laws and regulations. So this is a business context. And if you are a manager in any of these entities, if you are an energy professional working for any of the 3 entities, you can visualize how your roles can probably expand in order to now look at the evolving business context of, the airlines becoming a supplier, the 5-star hotel becoming a supplier to the airline industry. So we need to understand. Understanding this means we will need to spend some time, firstly, in clearing the fog. There are many terminologies, frameworks, approaches. We can easily get lost. Sometimes we need to comply with, various requirements based on the approaches or the frameworks. So we will spend a portion of the webinar's time in trying to clear the fog and help ourselves to focus on the most important things when we talk of sustainability. But we also then need to know what are the sustainability imperatives that are, running this world or driving this world. Is it that we need to focus ourselves on preventing and minimizing resource depletion, whether it is natural resources, scarce resources, strategic resources? Is it about ensuring the long-term growth of our businesses? Is it about ensuring that the future generations also can run the sort of businesses that we are running currently, and they can run it as good as the way we are running it now, or even better? Or is it a case of contributing to the sustainable development goals? There are 17 such goals, whether it is poverty, eradication, hunger reduction, clean air, clean water, climate change, so on and so forth, human rights, so on and so forth. So what are we talking about? And which are those imperatives that we should really be concerned about, which because they are the ones that are driving the agenda in today's world. So we'll spend some time in understanding and knowing these imperatives. But knowing the imperatives alone is not enough. We also then need to know the sort of interventions that we can end up, putting. So we need to list the interventions. These interventions could be, as much down to earth as the sort of works that we do as auditors. It could be about, strategizing for the businesses. So we need to understand, how do we actually influence top management, the boards, to really, do the best for the sustainability imperatives that we are focusing on. So we'll spend some more time on that. And lastly, we will also be open enough to admitting some of the weaknesses that still are there in the way that we approach this whole subject. So we'll try to look at some of the weaknesses and see how we can overcome these weak links. So I'm going to look at the webinar in terms of these 4 major themes. We will start with clearing the fog. So let's first get some of the unwanted ambiguities in terms of various terminologies. You have people talk about environmental protection, they talk about circular economy, they talk about ESG, they talk about social equity, they talk about corporate social responsibility, sustainability, sustainable finance, sustainable manufacture, climate change, climate border adjustment mechanisms very recently, ethics, governance. And not to do away with this, we also have various acronyms, whether it's Sustainable Finance Directing Reporters, Corporate Social Responsibility Directors, Global Reporting Initiatives, Business Responsibility Sustainability Reporting, Sustainability Account Standards Board, Task Force related climate related financial disclosures, so on and so forth, carbon disclosure projects, so on and so forth. So you have a number of these sort of technologies. Okay. And one will wonder how, as energy professionals, we will need to position ourselves against this plethora of terminologies and activities that are running behind these terms. My opinion, there are 3 things that we will have to think about. One is ESG, one is corporate social responsibility, and the third one is sustainability. So let's just focus on these 3, because these 3 themselves can give us a lot of ammunition in terms of what we can do to contribute to this whole thing on sustainability. The 3 terms are used interchangeably, but they're really not the same. So let's just have a quick look. We know all of these, but just let's have a quick look. Sustainability first, because the theme today is on sustainability imperatives. In a broad sense, it refers to the ability to maintain or support a process over a long period of time. And in a business context, it means how do we prevent the depletion of natural or physical resources so that they will be available for the long term. Corporate social responsibility, on the other hand, is a model which businesses can use to pursue pro-social objectives other than the profit-making objective. The underlying principle is what we know as the triple bottom line. Okay. Corporate social responsibility in India now is a mandate as per the Companies Act enforced since 2013. When we talk of sustainability, usually we also refer to sustainable manufacturing and sustainable finance. We don't need to get into the details of it now. ESG, which is now mandated by the markets regulated since February 2022, is essentially a framework by which investors can assess the performance vis-a-vis sustainability and corporate social responsibility perspectives. It is in order to decide about the investment risks. So by and large, if you can see, there are a number of overlapping themes that you can see in these three. But what we now need to do is to understand how they are linked. ESG is essentially a form of metrics that is a reported outcome, and its underlying rationale and motivators are provided by sustainability and CSR. This is all that we need to keep in mind, because all that we need to think of in terms of various imperatives, sustainability imperatives, or whether it is the interventions that we will need to make, will essentially run through this sort of a linkage. So our attention is going to focus on ESG, CSR, and sustainability. But again, there will be a number of frameworks and approaches which are being talked about, which are being used. And I'm sure you must have already heard of a number of these, whether it's the Principles for Responsible Investing, Carbon Disclosure Project, the GRI frameworks, the Sustainable Development Goals, whether it's the National Guidelines for Responsible Business Conduct, BRSR, ESG ratings, and then you have a number of standards, whether it's industry standards or the ISO standards, you have a number of them. But underlying all of these things, all of these approaches, frameworks, whether we are focusing on an ESG matter or whether we are focusing on a CSR matter, what is important is that people are keen to know about the impacts of a business's operation and how material these impacts are. So at the end of the day, it is these two that will again and again surface in all the sort of interventions that will be required. So we already know as auditors, we are already aware of what the impacts are, what the materiality of these impacts are. But just to understand that these will be the basis on which a lot of the discussions happen whenever people talk about sustainability, ESG, and corporate social responsibility. So now let's spend some time knowing about the various imperatives. We have cleared the fog in terms of understanding all those confusing terminologies. Let's now get into what are the imperatives that are driving the agenda today in today's business context. This is the point when I would also like Ms. Bhavana to run the second poll. Bhavana?
Yes, one second. Yeah. So, in your view, which of the following trends will be actually fast-tracked or catalyze Indian businesses to adopt various sustainability initiatives? So option A is ESG compliance. Option B is global trade requirements. C is mandatory CSR compulsions, and D is business competitiveness.
We'll spend 2 minutes listing out what we think are the most relevant option. Can we have the results, please?
Yeah. So option A is 20%. Option B is 10%. Option C is 30%. And option D is 40%.
Excellent. As expected, I had expected this sort of a poll, but it also reconfirms that a number of us still believe that business competitiveness is what is going to drive the sustainability agenda, and that is what is also the focus of a number of initiatives that are running in the sustainability field. Now, as I said, there are so many pointers. I'm going to point out 4 of them. And when we look at all these 4 pointers that I'm going to list out, you can really see that the options that were there in the poll, they all have some weightage of relevance and importance. Let me come to pointer number 1. This is the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Some of us may be aware of this. To those who are not aware of this, it is a EU directive that is going to become operational in October 2023. And the US and Australia are also probably expected to follow suit immediately. Most importantly, one of the things that has been debated and extensively reported is that the UNCTAD has pointed out that the Indian aluminum and steel sectors alone may lose about $1.7 billion in terms of their revenues. And this loss could be because of the carbon tax, because of the monitoring costs, and because of the compliance costs. Of course, there is also work that is being done in terms of the CBAM certificates, like the India Green Credit Systems. But there are a number of challenges that experts are already discussing about. One is about how to ascertain the impacts and materiality both at the firm level and product level, because firms do have a multiple range of products. So the reason why I'm showing this as point 1 is to actually emphasize that there are going to be a number of global regulatory trends that are going to put pressures on both economies like India as well as individual businesses to show that they are working in mitigating climate change. The point is that this also opens up, opportunities to address some of the challenges and to create a role for ourselves as energy professionals. It is still early days, but the reason why this point has come is that such global trends are indeed pointers for defining our own roles. Let me now come to another point. Most of us are already aware of the market regulators, requirements for the business responsibility and sustainability reporting. We have already discussed this briefly earlier. Okay, some of you may already have been working in contributing to such reports also, and many of us may have just read the reports. Now, I am going to point out 3 such reports for the year 2021. There is no specific reason why I have chosen these 3 firms, Tata Power, Shree Cements, and Reliance Industries. There is no particular reason, but the fact is that using such reports can identify both the challenges and the opportunities that are there for sustainability professionals as a general thing, as well as for energy professionals. Let's look at what the Tata Power report says. The vision, it says, is to empower 1 billion lives through sustainable, affordable, and innovative energy solutions. The terms are wonderful. They can open up a lot of opportunities. And then it talks that in terms of sustainable sourcing, it has talked extensively about non-fuel inputs, but it remains silent on some of its core inputs, such as coal. Okay. Of course, materiality assessments are there using IIRC frameworks. The energy water data are all assured by independent third-party auditors, and there is a pledge for net zero by 2045. This is just from a cursory glance. There is nothing like a critical examination, but this is just out of a cursory glance. Let's look at what Sri Simmons' report says. The 2021 report is the 18th report, which means that they've been doing it for a long time. And their vision is that they want to lead in creating prosperity and happiness for all stakeholders through innovation and sustainable practices. Again, let's forget the materiality assessment. They are using some internal scoring frameworks, and they are getting their assurances from third-party parties. The fact is that in terms of sustainable sourcing, they have got a process by which they are supporting 68 critical supporters in terms of sustainable practices. They do have a pledge for net zero by 2050, but they are only talking about scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. They have not mentioned anything about what they intend to do about scope 3 or scope 4, whatever it is. They've also been participating in the Industry Association's Innovandi project for carbon capture, utilization, storage technologies. So that's a cursory glance of the Sri Simmons report. If you look at Reliance, just one thing that would really bring you into what they're doing is the fact that they have a wonderful 8-parameter framework for sustainable sourcing. So the point that I'm trying to make from this pointer is that through the BRSR requirements, large companies are addressing a number of sustainable issues which can open up opportunities. They are also facing a number of challenges in terms of their own assessment of their sustainability performance, which means that they need people with whom they can collaborate and address those issues. They've got a commitment in terms of their vision, but they also need assistance in terms of collaboration. So this again is a pointer for this is a sustainability imperative that comes from the business side through such requirements as the BRSR requirement. Let me go to pointer number 3. Now, for this pointer, all that we need to do is to look at the traffic of communications that are happening in our mainstream as well as social media. In fact, about 10 days back, I was just browsing through some of the LinkedIn, group messages, and there was one about, a biogas utilization for agriculture that was being posted. What interested me was not the actual post itself, but the comments that are coming from the post. One of the environmental strategists commented that, most of the digesters are suboptimally designed, and they are not in any way related to the feedstock that is being fed to the digesters. Another comment from an environmental biotechnologist, she says that the biodigester design itself is assimilation of symbiotic processes of microbes getting together, and therefore the digester design will need to look at the flexibility part of these microbes that are coming in the feedstock also. Now, what is interesting is that if you read between the lines in some of these comments, we understand that plant design, operations maintenance, real-time analytics, these are becoming highly critical for not only these type of initiatives, but generally a lot of sustainability projects. And therefore, the role of us as professionals can really be to look at how can we contribute at the design stage? How can we contribute in terms of upping the O&M, performances? And where do we, improve our, digital technology interface in a lot of the sustainability initiatives? So pointer 3 is essentially to say that the pointers can come from, individual problems that people are facing. And these can be not just businesses, these can be individual consultants. They may be facing problems. How do we collaborate with them? This is a role that we'll need to think of. There are many more pointers, but allow me to make one last pointer. Global trade and investment flows. These are facing many headwinds. And all these headwinds on sustainability, are showing that there needs to be, different approaches to solving sustainability issues. Let me highlight just 3 of the headwinds that are there. The one is ESG ratings, second one is sectoral trends, and the third one is the FTAs. ESG ratings, again, we just saw that, these are essentially investor requirements, but the factors that they use to augment their, risk assessment frameworks is to really look at investment risks from an environmental sustainability and a social responsibility perspective. Okay, so there are a lot of, trends that are happening in this. Of course, there is also a debate that has recently started in the North American continent as to, the ESG ratings itself, the ESG funding itself. But as I read in one of the articles, ESG is dead, long live ESG, which means that, it's already reached a stage where you cannot avoid ESG. And then we have sectoral trends. I'm not talking of the heavily indexed, energy intensive sectors. I'm talking of some new age sectors that are really becoming critical to India's growth. Be it aviation, be it hospitality, tourism, mining, pharma, healthcare, logistics, banking, financial sector, smart cities. All of these sectors today are very keen that they want to have excellent, sustainability performances. And they also know that unless they become sustainable, they will also be a weak link in India's growth. So they are requiring a lot of, capabilities and capacities in terms of sustainability. And then for free trade agreements, India today is pursuing and negotiating a lot of free trade agreements, whether it is with Canada, UK, Australia, EU. But all of these free trade agreements are also inherently being influenced by a number of environmental agreement pacts that India signed with these same countries. Just to give you an example, India and Canada have a bilateral environmental agreement partnership, which was amended as recently as September 2022. What that agreement clearly states is the amount of support that both the Canadian and the Indian governments are going to give in terms of clean tech for smart cities, electric vehicles, decarbonization, and so on and so forth. Which means that there is going to be a number of grants. Entrepreneurs are going to be supported. New technologies are going to be supported. And that means that there are these sort of imperatives can open up, opportunities for professionals like us to see how do we contribute in those goals that will help both both the countries, the bilateral countries, to achieve whatever they have set for themselves as targets. So 4 pointers essentially giving us the sort of, things, the imperatives. Why have I chosen these 4 pointers? As you say, there are a number of other pointers also, but these are the 4 that I feel will really drive. If you look at it, one is the global trade regulatory trends that are happening. The other one is, in terms of an investor requirements, businesses required to report a lot of sustainability things. The third one is essentially, problems that are being faced on the ground level in terms of design, operations, maintenance. And lastly, the bilateral initiatives that are happening between various governments. These are very powerful drivers in the sustainability context. So how can then we as energy managers react to these sort of imperatives? Apparently, there will be a huge demand for analysis, assessments, projects, performance reports, so on and so forth. But are we going to remain contented by just executing these sort of roles? Not that they are less important, they are vital, but can we play other roles also? Let's look at the possibilities. So, in a sense, this relates to what I had started the webinar with. If you remember the 4 I's: intelligence, implementation, ideation, and influence. So extending audit and compliance knowledge. We are very good at audit and compliance. We have a good basis, knowledge basis. We have experience, we have the expertise. So we can extend it to all these imperatives, which means that the intelligence side of things we will continue to play, and we'll have to play it even better. And then we have the implementation side. We have experience in and expertise in running projects, whether it is sustainable manufacturing, whether it is the use of the 6R techniques, reuse, recycle, recover, all of those things, remanufacture, redesign, in a sense, rethink. So one can leverage that expertise of implementing a lot of sustainability projects and contribute to these emerging imperatives. So that's the implementation side. But one can also develop winning strategies. The board requires a winning strategy. Top management wants strategies that can win for them on the sustainability context. So using the knowledge, using the expertise in implementation can be also helped in developing strategies. So if, let's say, for example, the aluminum and steel sectors are going to have a CBAM impact, while they will be internally putting their heads together, can we, using our experience and expertise, contribute in their development of strategies? And lastly, it's about influencing, championing projects. All of these, whether it is the CSR, ESG projects, or whether it is projects that will now come up because of these imperatives, championing them means that you need people who can lead, who can set the agenda, who can decide where the priorities have to be given. So these are some ways by which, as energy professionals, we can react and respond to some of these imperatives. But let me tell you, moving from an intelligence and implementation role to a ideation and influencing role, it is easier said than done. It requires a certain amount of a mindset change. And in order to equip ourselves and make the mindset change possible, we also have to understand the myths and challenges. let's explore what these myths and challenges are. First, the myths. Let's take the case. Let's say maintenance or the head of a quality control lab, extensive experience in fuel analysis, in materials analysis, and you are suddenly asked one day, hey, can you, take up and lead on a lot of sustainability initiatives for a company? Now, I have posed this question to a few of such people, and invariably, I get reactions which show some of the myths that are there in the minds of people who are still not sure about what sort of roles they can play. The first one is really what I call as the position myth. It says, how can I lead? I am not really on top of the sustainability agenda. After all, I am just the head of QC. How do I really, play the role? I can't. Unless I'm there, I can't really do it. Okay, that's the position myth. Parallelly, sometimes people talk about the destination myth. It says, once I'm on top, once I lead the sustainability agenda, probably then, I will be able to influence and I will be able to do something on which will show that, sustainability activities will be a success. Okay, but I will need to be there. I have to be there. That's the destination. So unless I'm there at the destination, I am not able to contribute much. There is the influence myth, which says, I really, cannot decide on what all to do on sustainability unless I have that, bird's eye view, the helicopter view. And for that, I need to first be there. I have to be there. Okay. And right now, being in the position that I am, as a laboratory in charge or an auditor, I don't have that view, which is also, in a sense, the fourth myth, which is the inexperience myth. That, I will know about managing sustainability agendas once I'm there. Till then, I don't have the experience. I have experience in doing auditing. I have experience in understanding the material flows, the linkages, all of those things I have. But sustainability is something that looks like it's something much more, and I don't have the experience. So really, I don't think I'll be able to contribute. Then you have a freedom myth. It says that I currently, I am in a position I don't have all the resources to manage all the various things that sustainability will require. Only if I am on top, I have control of all the resources, can I do something about it? That's, thinking that I don't have the freedom. I am limited in my choices. And lastly, it's the potential myth, which says I really can't do all that I can think I can do because I'm really not there as yet. Okay, so it's a potential myth. And essentially, these sort of thoughts come only because of two things. One is not realizing the power that you have in the roles that you're currently playing and how that power can be extended to delivering anything on the sustainability agenda. And the next one is that the false, idea that leading on something or a leadership role means that I need to have more rights and not much of, real down to earth responsibilities. If I am asked to do, my current work, the responsibility that I have in terms of generating quality control reports, I should be freed from those sort of things. No, leadership is about, increasing rights and decreasing risk. It's not that way. It's decreasing. It's increasing responsibilities and decreasing rights. So this is another myth that, many times people have. But let's move over from myths to the challenges. The same people, when I talk to them, also reveal the sort of, challenges that they perceive, but they want to move from, the current roles that they're playing to something more than their current roles. The first challenge I call as a tension challenge or the pressure cooker challenge. There are people say, oh, but there are too many contradictions in sustainability. People talk so many, very general things. that creates a lot of pressure. Unless we are clear about things and unless we do one or two things only, it will work. Okay, and therefore, I don't want to get into those sort of pressure situations. Then there is the frustration challenge, which is, oh, you know what, the people who are leading on sustainability, they really don't know what they are doing. They are from headquarters. They have never been on the ground. They have never done audits in their life. And yet, with very little knowledge, they are leading things. I'm really frustrated. I can do much better than them. That's another challenge. A third challenge is the multi-hat challenge. Oh, right now my role is quite simple, straightforward. I am an auditor. I need to do an internal audit. I am a QC in charge. I need to regularly, check on quality and report on quality. It is very simple. I have a single hat. I am able to do it excellently well. But sustainability means I have to don several hats. Today I'll be talking about water. Tomorrow I'll be talking about energy. Third time I'll be talking about some women's employee rights. And then fourth time something about what is happening in the community and communicating with the local community. That's too many things, and I wouldn't even know what hat to wear at what point of time. I will only mess up things. I don't think it's a role that fairly I should be playing. Then you have the ego hat, which continues says, how long do I keep doing these things? What do I do? Is it that, I should get some big, MBA qualifications and financial qualifications and just straight away try to parachute myself into the top level? Is that the only way that I can, run a sustainability agenda? And the last two, fulfillment and vision. One is to say, hey, sustainability vision, the ones that we saw for Tata Power or Sri Siemens, that has been, articulated, driven by some person. Now you want me to, execute it. It's not my vision really. How do I succeed when the vision is not mine? If I had the opportunity to set the vision, with my knowledge, with my expertise, I may be able to set a better vision for the organization. So you see, sometimes these challenges can also prevent us from looking at, how do we play some different roles. And then, leave alone these myths and challenges, sometimes there are genuinely specific systemic challenges that, industry managers face. Let me highlight a few. How to be effective and adequate in collecting and disseminating information to various stakeholders. This sometimes, is a real challenge. You need systems and processes to do this. Second one, how to be judicious in identifying and using the most appropriate of frameworks and standards. There are many. Which are the best ones I should be using? Or should I be using my own internal frameworks? How to navigate multiplicity of reporting and regulatory regimes, overlapping ones, that too. I need to be clear. So do I have some systems? Can I develop some systems which will help me in this? Lastly, how to ensure that sustainability is not looked at as, cost centers, but it is a business enabling tool. So you see, I can play a role if I'm able to develop some systems and processes which will help me to migrate from the role that I'm playing to a much broader role and contribute even better. Now, perhaps this is, where we have to realize that we will need to move from, a transactional project-based role to a transformative one, which can help, top managements, or which can influence, our own organizations. If we are entrepreneurs, how do we influence ourselves to see that we are having a sustainability agenda? Perhaps this is the right time Ms. Bhavana, to have the last poll. Can we have the last poll? Can we have another?
Yeah, so that last poll is not having options. You have to answer. So I'll just read out that question, and attendees are supposed to write their answers in the question answer box. So
Okay.
let me read it out. So the question is, as per your understanding, what is the annual salary package of an energy engineer in industry, an energy auditor in an audit firm, and a sustainability professional in industry, with all with an average of 5 to 7 years of experience? And you have to give an approximate estimate, not an range. So you have to write for salaries for energy engineer, energy auditor, and sustainability professional. So kindly write your answers in the question answer box. Yeah, we'll wait for a minute.
Yeah, we'll wait. Interesting. I think all the participants are up to the mark, up to the speed in knowing what the salary levels are, which is good. Which is good. And this really prompts me to ask the next question. I don't need an answer because it is just to reflect and contemplate within yourselves. I don't need answers. Why is it then that sustainability professionals seem to have an average annual salary of, let's say, 20 or 24 lakhs, whereas energy auditors and energy engineers seem to have about 7 lakhs or 8 lakhs? Why is there so much of difference? We have to just contemplate. There are no specific reasons. Of course, salaries will depend on a number of factors. But let me go back to, the presentation itself. So let me continue. So, the difference in salary ranges clearly suggests that to don the hat of a sustainability professional or a leader, perhaps something more is expected from me, something more than what I am currently performing as an energy auditor or an energy engineer. And it has got nothing to do with the work roles, the job role per se. What is happening is we need to understand the things that are coming into play in terms of the skill sets that are required. It means that as energy professionals, we are already good at a number of skills. I am listing them down here, some 7 skills. There could be a few more. But besides having these skills and improving upon these skills, whether it is, skills of assessing, understanding the material sciences, the process knowledge, engineering and mathematical aptitudes, data acquisition, problem solving, problem identification, systems analysis, compliance management, standards setting, so on and so forth. I also need to improve upon it because the regulatory regimes are not only local, the regulatory regimes are becoming national and international, and therefore I will need to know how I can hone these skill sets so that my organization or my client is able to deal with such regulatory regimes even better. But then I also need to acquire and hone some new skill sets. What are these? I am listing down another 9. I'm not going to dwell too much in explaining these skill sets. They are self-evident. But this is one of the reasons why we have to understand that when we move from a transactional project mode to a transformative strategic mode of a sustainability professional, then we also have to exhibit that we have the competency of, and the confidence of having all these, 7 plus 9, 16 skills. And that means no skill set comes, free of cost. It means that organizations are going to value one much more. The other thing is, it need not necessarily always be in terms of salaries. It could also mean in terms of opportunities to, enhance your own experiences, to do more of such projects. The more you're able to induct these skills, you will be more confident of executing a lot of these projects. Now, these are skills, but in order to influence at the top management or the board level, it requires us to make very convincing and strong cases to the top management. How do we do that? Leave alone the myths and the challenges. If we have an opportunity, how do we exactly do this successfully? I am throwing something known as the 3P principles. Remember that we have the power. Where does that power come from? In terms of the background knowledge and expertise that we have developed, whether it is our qualifications, whether it is our experience, whether it is the number of projects that we do, okay, or whether it is just being on top of what is happening in the world, reading reports. This is the power. How do we leverage this power into influencing the boardroom agenda? This is something that we'll need to keep in mind. But then I've also said something about principle. What is this principle? Principle is essentially, when we talk about sustainability, we're talking about the moral rights. One can look at it as a moral right, that it is the right thing to do, or the principle comes from the vision of the organization. So if you go back to the Tata Power or the Shree Cements, they have a vision empowering 1 billion people with, sustainable and innovative, power supply or something like that. Tata Power's vision. That is giving the principle on which one can, work. And then there is a purpose. What is the purpose? The purpose is the key objectives. So you have a sustainability agenda which says, a vision which says empowering with sustainable, practices and innovative, products. That will translate into a number of objectives and activities. It could also mean that a number of CSR projects can be an outcome of these things. So all these three will need to be carefully looked at in terms of how we want to influence the agenda. But it is not as simple as doing these three things, because then every one of us can do it. We have, let's say in my organization, there are 10, well-experienced energy auditors. We all know what the vision of the organization is. We all know what all CSR projects are. So all of us can easily then influence the agenda. No, here is where the tricky part comes. If I have the power and I have the principle, but I don't have the purpose, which means what? I have the knowledge, I have the experience, I also have an organization which has set for itself a vision, but it is not really articulated on the projects, on the objectives, then all that I can do will be suboptimal. It's so. Similarly, if I have a vision which has been translated into some good projects, but I don't have the power, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have access to the expertise, that's going to be a weak position in which I am trying to influence the agenda. So is the case when I have the knowledge, I have the expertise. I also know that there are a number of these projects, objectives that are there, but there is no underlying vision. Then it is going to be non-effective. It is going to be many times non-ethical also. The way I'm going to see, it's as simple. Power is the might, principle is the right. So might and right, alone won't work. And might with just the purpose is going to be, non-ethical. So what is important is that if I have to influence the sustainability agenda, then I'll need to have the right combination of both power, principle, and purpose. How do I do that? There is no one better qualified, better experienced than people who are working, who have the expertise of having worked in projects to do this, because they have the knowledge, they have the expertise. Even if they don't have it, they know where to access both knowledge and expertise. The principle, they have a broad idea about where the organization is going. They only have to link this up. And of course, the purpose. There will be objectives, but then you can also add on, develop other winning strategies. And that's how you influence. And well-to-do sustainability professionals are highly regarded only because they are able to bring in and influence the agenda. What do the boards at the end of the day, whether it is a Tata Power board or a Reliance Industry board, what is it that they are really interested in? Apart from the profitability and the financial side of things, they want that their entire operations, the risks to the operations have to be minimized. So there has to be risk management. They also they're very much interested in building up the brands so that there are more stakeholders who will collaborate and who will co-opt with them in their own sustainability journeys. Now, if these are the two things that they want, they would be very keen to listen to anyone who can actually coalesce the power, principle, and purpose and show how exactly sustainability agenda can be defined so that risks are minimized and communication strategies for ensuring that the brand image is sustained or improved is always there. Let's go back. Even if you go back to that manufacturing of salted peanuts, which I put as an illustrative case, think of yourself as whether you are in the hotel, 5-star hotel, or whether you are in the airline industry, or whether you are, a consultant with the manufacturing industry itself. identifying where the source of power is, where the principle is with each of these players, and the purpose for which they are working on, you will be able to, open up a number of doors and show exactly what they should be doing and how probably it is best that they collaborate with you or probably associate with you. It could be in terms of an employment opportunity, it could be in terms of a business opportunity, it could be in terms of a consultancy opportunity, whichever way. Okay, that's how you influence the agenda. Now, so we have looked at three things. We have cleared the fog. We saw some of the pointers which are showing on the sustainability imperatives. And we saw these strategic interventions which help us move from an intelligence implementation role to an ideation and a influential role. What we then need to do is look at the last piece in the jigsaw puzzle, and that is about being very open about some of our weaknesses. And I'm not talking about infrastructure resources. I'm not talking about physical resources. No, I am talking about a very weak focus on innovation in a number of things that we do. Yes, there is a lot of jugaad that happens when we run projects, and that's about solving problems in the best, most frugal way. But what I'm talking about is to really put our minds, we have the aptitude and the capability to put our minds to, understanding how innovation can help us, whether it's technological, whether it is organizational, whether it is social. There are 4 contexts for innovation. And we need to look at, all these 4 dimensions. Under what context are we talking about, innovation? Which stakeholders are going to benefit or get impacted by the innovation? What are the processes that need to be, looked at, and what are the outcomes? Let me just give you a couple of, examples that just come to my mind. For a long time, as engineers, we have always looked at, anti-corrosion. There are a number of technologies in place. There are a number of materials, anti-corrosion paints, and so on and so forth. Yet, anti-corrosion in terms of reducing the value over a lifetime of an asset is indeed a problem. And there are enough academic papers that talk about how anti-corrosion is also linked to a number of the sustainability, carbon footprint agenda. Point is that if anti-corrosion is still something that affects industry, how frequently and how adequately are we talking, are we conversing with people who are already innovating on a number of materials or have already got products? Are we talking to them? Sometimes I feel that there is weakness in this sense. There is, for example, a space technology spin-off, something known as SheMats, self-healing materials. Essentially, self-healing materials are using dynamic damage repairs because of their microstructures and the sort of material polymers that are being used. So they have a lot of anti-corrosion applications. Today, people are talking of safety and the life of lithium-ion batteries as energy storage devices when they're talking of the electric vehicle industry. Well, SheMats, self-healing materials, are proven to have improved the life and the performance of lithium-ion batteries because of their nature that they need to be thin to accommodate a number of parameters, but because of their thinness, they also have a lot of material fatigue and accident-prone stuff. And then you have wearables. Wearables today, they also suffer a lot of mechanical damage because of micro fissure damage. Today, when we are talking of condition-based monitoring, when we are talking about condition monitoring of plant assets, remote sensing and operators acquiring data using wearable devices in some very extreme, uh, equipment applications. This is a technology that can be used, but then using SheMats for wearables can be a solution. The point is, these are just examples. The main issue is in our normal roles as energy professionals, as sustainability professionals, it is important that we continuously access or talk to people who are otherwise doing their own innovations and then see how we can translate their innovations into the sort of sustainability projects that we are involved in. The next weakness, and today I'm restricting myself to 2 such weaknesses, but I think these are very important weaknesses. The next weakness that I see amongst us, which requires a certain amount of improvement, is about collaborative networking. I see very little of this being done, especially when it comes to cross skills requirement. Now, sustainability certainly means that there is a regulatory influence, there are contractual impacts, there are financial impacts, there are branding impacts, and there are professionals who are day in and day out doing a lot of work in these things. If you go back to my very first context that I set, the macro context, I mentioned about MSMEs being the weakest link because they have very little capacities for performing better on sustainability. Now, how is it that we are not able to get collaborative networking of professionals, whether we are energy audit professionals, energy productivity professionals, whether we are regulatory professionals, whether we are contractual legal professionals, marketing professionals, any number of things, or even academic institutions. Most times collaborations happen on a bilateral context, or that is on a one-to-one context, but never on a many-to-many context. So connecting many-to-many is something that I still feel is a weakness in sustainability approaches. And it is high time that we had a relook at things and have some approaches by which we can set right these 2 weaknesses. How do we start a conversation? How do we continue with conversations and dialogues with people who are innovating, people who can provide a number of very useful insights into different aspects for the same problem, because at the end of the day, as I said, it calls for wearing multiple hats. And we cannot always wear multiple hats. We need to know which hat to wear at the right time, or we need to know how to access the right hat for the right situation. And that can happen only if we are having continuous conversations. So when we talk of industry academia linkages, I think that's a one-to-one. That will happen, that should happen. But it should also encompass a number of other players. This is something that we will need to look at. I am just stopping at this stage. The idea is that there are some weaknesses. We can overcome those weaknesses. It still requires a lot of fresh out of the box thinking. But I will stop here and thank you for spending your afternoon in this webinar. If there are some questions right now, I'll be most happy to answer. I think it will be more of a discussion. But if you think you need to discuss with me on any aspect that I have covered today, please feel free to email me at the email ID that I have shown on this slide. Can we open it up for a small Q&A session?
Thank you, Mr. Giri. So that was very much thought-provoking session, and many things have been discussed in this time, and I hope that each and every energy professional who is associated with sustainability will definitely rethink on the aspects, and especially the young energy auditors and managers who have joined recently this field. They'll come to know like how much they should know in order to make the influence and make this mission successful. So I now leave the floor open for the questions, and please let me know if you want to speak. I'll open the mic for you. Kindly raise your hands so that I can open the mic for you. I can see Mr. Yeshwardat Sharma, and so I am opening the first mic for him.
Sure.
Mr. Yeshwardat Sharma, you may speak now.
Is he there?
Yeah.
We should just go to the next person.
Yeah. We'll go to the next person. And yeah, this is Sridhar Manure.
Yes, Mr. Sridhar.
Yes, Mr. Sridhar, can you speak? If you're not able to speak, you may just type your question in the chat box.
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Sridhar, go on, please.
Yeah, I just typed the question in the chat box. And just out of curiosity, wanted to know whether the trainer thinks net zero is going to be reality by 2040 or 50 globally.
Sorry, can you come back again? I didn't hear you properly.
His question is, do you think net zero is going to be reality by 2040 or 2050 globally?
Now, this is certainly a difficult question. I think Ms. Bhavana and we were also briefly discussing this earlier today. The point is, these are targets, and they are, aggressive targets. A lot of initiatives are happening, and if the economies are going to also develop the way we think they will develop, I think these are achievable targets. The difficulty is when there are, extraneous geopolitical things that can spoil sport. But otherwise, looking at the way businesses and individual sectors are preparing themselves for the amount of investments that are going into creating the infrastructure for net zero, and the experiences that we are getting every day into improving our own approach to managing this net zero project, I think it should be a possibility. Good targets, we need to have such stretch targets, whether it is 2050, whether it is 2075. That is something that I really cannot tell. There are experts who say that that's not going to happen. So it's a moot point.
Yeah.
Let me acknowledge presence of AEEWI Asia Pacific Regional Director, Mr. Binoy Chaudhary. He is there in the session today. Yeah, welcome, Mr. Binoy Chaudhary. You are attending our session for the first time, and we are really glad that you could make it.
Hello? Am
Yes,
I audible?
yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay. I am very sorry for not actively participating. I was a passive listener from the beginning, sir. I am grateful to you, and if first few questions also I tried to respond, but then we are bogged down in departmental work this Friday. We have to finish some deadlines. Sir, they are very sorry that I could not ask you my questions also, but your responses I tried to follow, and we, on behalf of Association of Energy Engineers, we thank Western India chapter for their initiative, and also to you for the wonderful speech, and very interactive. That time to time you are keeping the participants awake by asking some responses and explaining that what is the meaning of that and how that is relevant. So that is very nice. That is, of course, very. I should learn from you, and we hope that this will continue. This association will continue. Please be in touch with, remain in touch with us, and guide us so that we can, because we have the common goal. Net zero is, of course, a distant goal. We all aspire for that. But in the process, we all prosper, we all develop, and that is that we also feel that we are in the same boat, brother. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Binoy.
Binoy. Yes.
I think it's wonderful. I just wanted to thank not only you but all the participants, because a Friday afternoon is certainly not, the best of times, because one, you want to complete whatever you have set for yourself as target for the week. The second is that, today, as companies, as individuals, we have a number of things that we are working on, not only our day-to-day work, but we also want to extend ourselves, to do many things. And that's why I'm totally impressed that, all of you are able to spend this 1 hour on a Friday afternoon. So thank you so much again for your time. If there, and certainly I'll be in touch both with AE Western India chapter as well as yourself. The idea is, we need to do many things. We need to do many things innovatively. Webinars are an excellent start, but we also need to see how we can take this one step forward at a time and see what more can we do. I will be talking with Ms. Bhavana and the others at AE, and we'll see how things get.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah. Any other questions? So I cannot see any more questions, or let me check.
So if there is any, they can also email to me.
Yes, definitely the questions can be emailed, or you can contact us also for more details. And in next session, we will be having some announcements, very exciting announcements from AEEWI Western India chapters. We are going to announce our awards awards program very soon, and we hope that all of you will participate as an individual, as a company, and make use of the best of the opportunities to showcase your work on this platform. Earlier also we had such kind of award function in the year 2016, and we hope to start it again this year. And So don't forget to join the next session. That is the 4th of Friday of this month, and that is 23rd of June. So stay connected. And thank you, Mr. Girdhar, once again for such a wonderful session. And we hope to learn more and more from you and stay connected on this platform and other platforms also. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.